Hello, I'm your host, David Newson, and welcome to Coded in Gold. This podcast explores the fractured, beautiful pieces of our modern life through compelling stories and conversations with exceptional individuals. Let's get started. Welcome. In today's episode, I sat down with Todd Reesing, someone I've known in business, and when we reconnected recently, I just knew I wanted to have him on the show. Most people know Todd as the record-setting quarterback who led the University of Kansas through one of its most memorable eras, including that legendary Orange Bowl run. But what drew me in first wasn't his athletic career. It was his extensive travel, the perspective he's gained from it, and how intentionally he's shaped his life after football, including his work in finance and leadership, currently leading growth strategy and client relationships at Cap 6. As we got deeper into the conversation, I realized I had far more in common with Todd's athlete mindset than I expected. We explore how the discipline, presence, and resilience he developed on the field translates into the values I care about most: personal growth, purpose, and building a grounded life. We also touch on the community he's built with former athletes, the role meditation has played for him, and the way he continues to evolve long after leaving the game. It's a thoughtful, energizing conversation, and I'm excited to share it with you. Here's Todd Reesing. How have you been?
I'm doing very well. Yeah, things are moving along well on the work front. I'm really starting to get some traction, and been a busy few weeks here. As we get into the fall, it's always a really busy time of the year with conferences and meetings and work travel. But otherwise, doing well. Can't complain. The family's all doing well and healthy, and just had ACL the last couple weekends in Austin, so got out and saw some live music, which was always a good time.
Okay, that's nice.
We're almost through our summer. Summer in Texas is till like mid to late October, so it's starting to cool off a little bit, we're getting into the really nice time of the year here.
Okay, so cooling off means what exactly?
Well, it's still like a high of 90, 92, but at least the mornings and evenings are a little bit cooler, so like you can enjoy the start of the day and the end of the day.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, 53, a little bit different.
It's totally different.
I would love to be able to wear some layers. Actually be able to put on a jacket and a scarf, but that's like a 1 month of the year in Austin that we actually get that.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Okay, cool. The way I want to kind of kick this off is talk a little bit about your early life. We're not going to get too far deep into football, but because I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Fair enough.
I mean, yeah. I grew up in Buffalo Bills territory in upstate New York, but that's kind of the extent of it.
The extent of your experience in the football realm.
Yeah, totally. My siblings and my family would probably, yes, they will. When they see this, they will laugh at me out loud because I'm the outlier.
Fair enough. Listen, not everyone's a huge football fan.
But early life. Okay, so you grew up in Austin, Texas, yes?
Correct.
How did you get into football?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I played every sport imaginable. I mean, I did gymnastics, tennis, swimming, golf, football, baseball. And we just came from a family where sports was what we did. But my dad was an athlete. He didn't play collegiate or professional by any means, but he always loved sports. My mom was a really good athlete as well. So where some people grow up with a very musical family and they take piano lessons or learn to play the guitar, we grew up in a sports family, right? And we're at that point in time where there weren't iPads or computer games weren't everywhere. So like we were outside all the time. All we wanted to do was play outside, was try different sports and be competitive, go play backyard pickup basketball or football or throw your rollerblades on back when rollerblading was still cool.
I had rollerblades. I did have rollerblades, and they were cool at the time.
And so I think like every 2 years, I felt like my sport of choice would change, right? And that kind of continued all the way through growing up, through middle school into high school. And to be honest, I thought that baseball was going to be the sport that I would pursue to try to play at a higher level. I always liked football more, but like I'm not a very big guy, I'm 5'10" and some change, so that doesn't necessarily lend itself towards, oh, I'm going to be a football player, because
Sure,
you don't
sure.
have the physical stature that is prototypical for playing at a high level in football. Whereas in baseball, I thought I would follow in my brother's footsteps. So he ended up playing baseball at the college level, and so I thought, oh, I'll follow Big Bro and go play baseball as well.
When you were growing up, did you have career aspirations? Like once upon a time, like I was like, when I was a kid, I remember wanting to be like an airline pilot. That was the very first time, like, okay, I think I want to fly planes. That sounded cool. And then I got glasses, and then it was like, well, that's over, right? So, and then I think the next one was like, oh, I think I want to be a lawyer. And like, none of those things happened. But like
Yeah.
when you were a kid, when you started first thinking about like what a career might look like for you, what did you?
To be honest, I was one of those kids where my dream was to play sports. From
Oh,
a
that's
from a
cool.
from a
Okay.
very early age, I had a desire. I had the competitive, spirit, if you will, inside me, where I wanted to play sports, first in college, and then certainly to pursue a path to play professionally. Now, I think a lot of kids have that same dream, right? We'd all love to play sports. The
Sure.
reality is a very, very small percentage of players who play in high school, play in college, and then an even smaller percentage play professionally. So I think as I got older and as I became more realistic, and you understand that while you can put your best foot forward, the reality, the likelihood that you're going to play at a professional level is very small. And even if you do play at a professional level, the average career span is a
So
couple of
short.
years. Like the
Yeah,
NFL
yeah.
average career is, about just over 3 years. I think only one in
Wow.
three players even make it past 3 years. So I was rational enough. Like I had a longer term view in terms of what I wanted to do in life, post sports,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I'm thankful. A lot of that is reflective of the way that my parents raised me. My mom was very much, you're going to get A's, and that is the expectation. She was a school teacher herself and came from a long line of educators.
I
So
love
that
her.
was always what was impressed upon us by our parents was, hey, we were going to be as supportive as possible in your aspirations to play sports, but we demand that type of dedication in the classroom as well. And I think that's really important. So when I went to college, and I think this is where a lot of athletes don't have maybe the same support system or the same aspirations, is they're putting all their chips on the table and it's sports or nothing. And the reality is that's not a very good bet, right? We're talking
Wow.
about
Yeah.
2% of NCAA players end up playing professionally. So you got to hit almost the jackpot of the lottery to be
That's
able to
right.
go and make a career or a living out of it. So I always had my mindset of there is going to be a much more important life post sports in the professional realm, and getting good grades and focusing on that part is as important as the athletic part.
Cool. Okay, so my husband and I, we have a now 7-year-old. How early are we talking that you were playing sports? Like, were you playing tennis at 3, 5, 4? Like,
Yeah, it's funny. I think as soon as I could probably walk or run around, I was probably picking up a ball or doing something.
okay,
I didn't really get into like really competitive team sports till you're probably, you know, closer to 8 or 9, like in the
okay,
kind of pre middle school. It's funny
okay,
that I've certainly seen a shift though, and I talk to friends and colleagues that have kids that are in middle school or even before middle school, and they're already like picking one sport, and it's like they have to go
wow,
all in on that sport. They're doing year round training. I mean, the amount of money that a lot of these families are spending on sport specific training year round before these kids are even in high school is astronomical. And I was always of the opinion that playing multiple sports and having multiple interests is going to be, I mean, first off, you don't know what you really want to do when you're 12 years old. Like, how am I going to pick what
right,
sport I want to pursue? And mine
sure,
changed
sure.
every couple of years. But I also think that by expanding your horizon, playing different sports, you're going to pick up different skill sets, whether it's physical or mental, that are going to benefit you in other sports. I remember when I was in college during the off season, I really started playing a lot of tennis. I really enjoyed it. I played it when I was really young, but then hadn't touched it for years. And me and a guy from the baseball team would go play after our summer workouts on the football and baseball team, respectively. And I really think that playing tennis helped with my footwork and my hand-eye coordination might change the direction because it's a different type of movement than you're typically doing, but that transposed over to being successful and having that agility in the football realm. So I think there are benefits to
Wow.
playing multiple sports, and I think that's something that a lot of kids nowadays aren't as focused on because it's hyper competitive, and people are really just trying to focus in on one area at a very young age.
You know, it's as I was preparing to talk to you today, I was reflecting on like what we've been talking about, sports being a very large part of your life, clearly, right? Because there's a lot out in the public domain about you. And I was also reflecting on my own life. And I wasn't really an athletic kid. Like, did I play Little League? Yeah, but like the reason why I wanted to play Little League was because I really wanted to wear those uniforms, but not
Yeah.
necessarily like. But my mother like was like, if you want to sign up for Little League and wear the uniform, you're gonna finish the season. Like you're gonna play the whole season. That'll be that. And I did, and I'm glad I did. Did I do it again? No, I did not. But what's also interesting is one of the things that I noted, and I'm jump around here a little bit, but fast forward, you and I met when you were at Dimensional Fund Advisors, and DFA had kind of an archetype that they would hire into certain roles. And that archetype usually was, at least from my purview, incredibly smart, folks that played team sports and either at a collegiate or a professional level, both, really high performing people. And when I think about why DFA would do something like that, it makes perfect sense, right? Like you want people who know and understand how to play on a team, for example. It hit me pretty hard that I did not have, because I was not that athletic and participatory in team sports, there's a part of knowing how to operate and play on a team that's always been missing for me, which even in my early work life would have benefited me, I think. So can you share a little bit about the portable skills that you learned from, playing sports as a young person to then at the collegiate level, and how that benefited you later in a corporate or a team environment?
Yeah, I think it's a really important point, David, and I've thought about this a lot as I've interacted and met other athletes that are performing at a high level in the professional realm. And I do think you mentioned starting out at DFA, which really on the financial advisor services side, the first two kind of sales guys were ex-professional athletes, and they kind of really built that culture that was really built around this mindset of teamwork. And I think, think about what you learn as a high performing athlete. I mean, there's a few attributes that I think everyone would agree with. You have to be very disciplined, right? It is
Okay.
hard to go out there and train every day at a high level. Your body hurts, you're mentally fatigued. You then also have to think about your academic performance if you're at a collegiate level. So you have to be very disciplined and adhere to a schedule. Pursue your goals with intensity every day. I think teamwork's another one, right? There's a lot of companies, a lot of corporations out there that I don't think probably do a great job at fostering this sense of teamwork, right? You have people that are supposed to be working towards a common goal, a shared belief, a shared mission, yet they're
Yeah.
competing with each other because they want the bigger bonus or they don't want to share their secret for why they're finding success. So I think the companies that do an incredible job, that have the success and have long tenured employees, find a way to make it be, hey, we are on the same team, we have a shared goal in common. How do we best support each other so that we can achieve that goal in a manner that's going to improve the outcomes for our clients, improve the outcomes for our employees, etc. So I think that concept of teamwork is a big one, and I think athletes understand that. Certainly, if you played team sports, and that comes twofold. It's how do you realize that I don't know everything, right? There are always people that have been there before you that you can learn from, that have the experience, that can teach you. And so I think being
Sure.
willing to know, like, hey, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, or I'm not the best athlete in the room, or I don't know how to read a defense as good as this quarterback that's been playing longer than I have. All right, teach me. Teach me everything you know. I want to be a sponge and soak up that knowledge. So I think being willing to learn is important. But then also when you're on the other side and you are the more experienced person, you have to be a mentor, right? Like people don't develop unless they have good mentors. You look at all the successful entrepreneurs that are out there. They all had mentors. I mean, even great CEOs, they have coaches. They have coaches because they need someone. They're always trying to improve their own personal game, their own professional game. So I think that's really important as well. And then at the end of the day, like hard work, right? To be successful, you got to be willing to put in the work. And whether that's as an athlete, whether that's as a parent, as a friend, or as someone in the professional realm trying to work your way up through an organization, you got to be willing to put in the time. Surround yourself with the right people that are going to support you and motivate you and help drive that ambition forward.
For folks like me, for example, haven't benefited from team sports, how can we develop or get better at teamwork as adults? Like, let's say, like, there's a lot of folks out there. Let's say, folks aren't, particularly coordinated or like sports inclined, right? But they really want to be high performing, members of a team at work or in their career. Are there other things that they can do to kind of sharpen or hone those skills?
Yeah, I think there's always ways we can improve our skill set, whether that's as an individual performer or as a team performer. I think when you think about being a good teammate, and right, these are, I think, core principles that would hold true if I was talking to you about how can I be a better friend or be a better brother, or how do I be a better colleague or be a better manager for the employees I'm working with. I think one of the things is you have to have an open mindset, right? You have to be willing to take feedback, right? Whether it's constructive, whether you agree with it or not. And I think a lot of people, they hear feedback and they think, oh, they're shooting me down, or they're telling me why I'm not good or what I'm doing wrong. But if you have the mindset of I need to get better every day, then you should be welcoming feedback. Hey, what did I do well? What can I do differently? What are my areas to improve on? What advice would you have for me? So I think for people coming up, like understanding that feedback is not criticism. If the person that's giving it is giving it in a manner and with emotional awareness that they want you to get better, you need to lean into that as someone trying to develop their skill set. So I think that's something we can always focus on, is being open-minded, being willing to accept feedback, and then also just having that willingness to learn. Like how can I better support those around me? Because ultimately, if you think about a team and you think about the military, anybody that operates in a high performance, high stress environment, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? I could be out there, I might be an amazing quarterback, I might be able to throw it 80 yards and throw every pass accurately, but if my offensive linemen don't block and I get sacked, I'm never getting a chance to throw the ball. If my receivers can't get open down the field, then it doesn't matter. We're not going to be able to complete the pass and make progress as an offense. So I think you have to realize as a team athlete, as a performer in any team environment, you have to be willing to trust those around you. Like you have to be willing to know that they're going to perform at a high level, and if they don't perform at a high level, I can't perform at a high level. And so knowing that, like if that's your mindset, then you should go in every day being like, well, who can I help improve their game? How can I share my knowledge or what I've learned through my experience so that I can improve someone else around me? Because the better that person gets, the better I'm going to get. The better we all get together, the more the team's going to perform, the more championships we can win, the more business we're going to be able to close, the happier clients are. I think those things, that the common thread of identifying that is we've got to be as strong as our weakest link. And so if you're the leader, if you're the manager, then it's up to you to find that person or find those people and find a way to help them elevate their game.
That's really well said. Okay, back to football really quick, which is really interesting because like everything that you just mentioned about being a quarterback and like, throwing the ball to like, okay, I actually understood all of that. So I'm
glad the analogies are still clicking for you, David.
I'm kind of shocked that I was able to actually accurately track all of that, but I was able to. So
you watched enough Buffalo Bills football that you knew what I was talking about.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
Good.
I mean, if I was over at my grandparents' house, like football was always on the TV. Okay. Kansas University football. You made a big and lasting impact on KU football. What did you set out to do? Did you have a goal there?
Yeah, the transition from high school football to college is a big
Yep.
jump, right? In
Okay.
terms of the level of competition. Everyone out there was the best player on their high school team, right? So you've ultimately like arrived at a place where you're not just head above heels better than everyone else. You're on a level playing field. And there are a lot of talented people. There's people that have been playing for 3 or 4 years. They've had 3 or 4 years more strength and conditioning training, more focused preparation. They've elevated their knowledge of the game. So you got to come in with a mindset early on that like you want to be able to compete. And I think for me, I didn't really necessarily have like a long-term goal. Like I didn't think, oh, my goal is to set all these Kansas records and then get inducted into the Ring of Honor. Like my
Right.
goal was more simple. It's like, how do I find an opportunity to play? How do I win a starting quarterback job so that I can actually get a chance to play and show off my skill set? Because I was not highly recruited and I was undersized and the list goes on and on, I had something to prove. Like I had the proverbial chip on my shoulder. Like I wanted to go out there to prove to all the schools in Texas, growing up in the state of Texas, I obviously grew up around watching University of Texas and Texas Tech and A&M and all these schools, and I didn't get recruited by any of them. So I was like, I'm going to go out and prove all these schools wrong that didn't give me a chance to show like when I play them, I want to not only beat them, but I want to embarrass them. I want to show all the naysayers that they should have given me a shot, that they passed on the wrong person. So I think that was intrinsic motivation for me as an individual. Is like I knew I had something to prove. I also wanted to prove it to myself. Like, hey, I'm good enough to play at this level, despite the fact that I'm not the biggest, the tallest, the fastest. I don't have the strongest arm, but like I've got something. Like I've got some grit. I got some X factor. And so I took that mindset in. But to start at Kansas, it was who do I got to beat out to get a chance to play on this team? And so it was really that narrow focus where that's all I was concerned on. How do I get myself physically and mentally in a position where I can compete for playing time?
So, question. I hear that, and something inside starts to bubble up that I can't quite make sense of, and that's there's this competition to play, right? You want to play, you have a goal, like someone is ahead of you to play, you need to beat that person out to play. But then there's a juxtaposition with that, and then but you then have to then play as a team when you're going out on the field. How does that work?
Yeah. That's a great point, David. I think, what I was speaking of previously was like my motivation as an individual. I wanted to play because I knew that I could help contribute to the success of the team.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. Okay.
ultimately,
Yep.
it's a team sport. If I hadn't been the starting quarterback, I would have done everything in my power to be a great backup, to be a great teammate, continue to work hard. And then if I got my opportunity the next year or 2 years later or 3 years later, I would have been
Right.
ready. Right? Because ultimately, what matters if you've got the mindset of a team player is what do I have to do to help this team win games and win championships? Right? Because success as a team is success for you.
Right.
Now, you
Right.
can have your own individual motivations, your own individual aspirations within that, but it's always within the context of what am I doing to help this team get better every day?
Okay, so if we were thinking, higher level of if we were thinking of it like a hierarchy, it's the team as absolutely always at the top.
The team is at the top. Yeah.
And then you can then have a layer of your own personal goals. That's okay, so long as it's in service to the whole.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. If you think about the foundational level, what do I have to do to be a good teammate? Well, I got to train hard. I've got to study film. I've got to understand the offense. I got to be a good teammate. I got to go to class and get good grades so I'm even eligible to play. I got to take care of all my responsibilities on and off the field at that foundational level so that I can be a good teammate, a good contributor to the team goals, which that's that top of the pyramid that we think about.
Sure.
And I think the more people you have across your entire roster that are bought in at that foundational level, that are doing what they have to do to improve themselves, then the stronger the team's going to get because you're built on a strong foundation. And I think a lot of that comes down to also to the coaching staff. What is the leadership? What are the expectations that are being put on you by those that are meant to lead, right? You think about collegiate athletes, they're 18 to 22 years old. You're young, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
might think you know a lot, but you don't. You
Yeah.
haven't had a lot of real world experience. You've just left
Yeah,
home for the first time.
your
Yeah.
frontal lobes aren't even
And,
fully
we
developed. Yeah.
talked about the concept of discipline. And that was one thing, my coach at University of Kansas, Mark Mangino, he helped to really turn the program around, which historically had not had a lot of success in football. And one of the main things that I think he did is he came in and he instituted, discipline at every facet of how we interact with the university, academically, athletically, having to go to tutoring, expecting you to always be on time, basic things, right? That we think are very important attributes, but not all programs have discipline like that and have people that enforce it with such intensity and rigor. So I think discipline and hard work, those are two things you can always control. Now, you may not be the best athlete, you may not have the best players, and that's okay. But you can control how disciplined you are, how hard you work, and the energy level, the attitude you bring in every day. Those are like non-negotiables,
Right.
right? If you don't bring those, then how are you ever expected to improve your game if you've already got a disadvantage because you're not as athletic maybe as the other team you're playing?
Sure. As you're sharing these stories of yours and anecdotes as well, I can't help but to think and reflect on my own life, and there's some parallels. I remember in my 20s and getting my career off the ground, um, I was fiercely competitive. I definitely had a chip on my shoulder because I did have something to prove. Before I had gone back to school, I was the kid working that didn't have a college degree yet, and so I had that chip on my shoulder, like had to, prove myself there. And then once I finally went back to school, and then like, okay, coming back out into the workplace, it's like, oh no, now I feel like I'm behind because I'm a little bit older, because it took me a little longer to go get back to school and all that good stuff. And it's interesting. I really struggled in, actually, I've always struggled in corporate environments. And I think that's something that's might be specific to me and my makeup, right? It's just like I've got this entrepreneurial like fire and flair that if I have an idea, it just keeps percolating up, and it's like, okay, I got to do it. I got to do it. I got to do it. But it's also interesting when I reflect back. I wish I had been, if I'm being absolutely honest with myself, I wish I had been a better team player. I mean, I can think of many instances over the course of my career where I was not a great team player. And it took me a long time to develop that as a skill. And it's interesting because I reflect back on like, well, why would that happen? It's like I'm a good human being. Like I was raised with a lot of discipline, and like I just so why was that? And I just think there were certain formative time periods, whether it was bullying very early on in like middle school, high school, that reshape your view of the world. I was very skeptical of other people's intentions as a result of that. And it followed me kind of into my adult working life, and it actually took me, I don't know, probably a couple of decades to write that view of the world, and start being a better colleague, teammate, business owner, what all of the different roles. I want to go back. The theme of this season on Coded in Gold is careers, because it's kind of a key core component of who we are, right? In this conversation I'm excited about, which we're going to get to, and I'll tease it right now, but like you did this whole like eat, pray, love boy band style almost kind of thing, and I want to get into that, which is like what sparked me. Like I wanted you on this show because we reconnected and you shared that you had been on a sabbatical and what you had done. We'll get there. But from professional, like athletic careers that we've been talking about and how unpredictable they can be,
Mm-hmm.
you also, shared that you had discipline, or, it was required to have discipline. You also had discipline from your family and your upbringing. Did you always, and you've talked a lot about like, okay, to go from high school teams to college teams is one huge up level, and then it's an even a fraction of those even make it to professional sports. Did you always have an eye for, okay, this isn't going to last forever, and this is my backup plan?
Yeah, I think when I got into college, my mindset was never I know I'm going to play professionally, like, and that's the only thing I'm focused on. My mindset was I would love to play professionally, but
Okay.
knowing that it's a difficult challenge, not saying that you should not pursue that. My mindset was always if I perform at a high enough level, I'm confident, and I'm a highly confident person. I'm confident in my skill set that I could compete at the highest level. I ultimately had a very brief stint playing in the Canadian Football League. I didn't quite make it to the NFL. Didn't get a shot. Would have loved to, but all throughout my time at Kansas, that was my mindset. Was I need to be prepared to set myself up to have success post sports, post football in the professional realm. Right, so I took my academics. I always had my mom's voice in the back of my head when I was going to
Sure.
class. That are
Okay.
that are your coaches that would expected you to perform at a high level in the classroom as well. And I think a lot of athletes, unfortunately, they get pushed or told that maybe they should pursue an easier major because it'll be less taxing on their time, so they can focus more on
Ah,
sports.
right.
And I was at a recent conference where an athletic director was talking just about that. As we need to better support our student athletes to encourage them to pursue majors that are going to give them the best chance to excel post sports, because 98% of them are going to have a career that does not involve playing a sport. So I pursued a double major in economics and finance while I was playing football. I also was a finance teaching assistant. Um,
Wow.
this was pre NIL money, David. So I wasn't having the ability to make any money. I wish I had. You see in some of the dollars and cents these
Wow.
kids are making nowadays, but
Yeah.
so things were different back when I played, and so I did that as an opportunity to make a little extra money just to support myself in college. So again, that's a one anecdote. There's a lot of those of players that had to take out loans just to be able to cover all their expenses while they're generating all this revenue. So I still think that's a step in the right direction. But that was always my mindset. Was I know this ride's going to end. I'm going to try to make it last as long as I possibly can. But as soon as it's over, like I want to be set up to begin a professional career where I can find the same amount of success, if not more, than I was able to experience and enjoy in sports.
Why finance?
I grew up and I was always very good at math. Right, math was my
Okay.
thing. Right, and so when you go into college, if you're good at math, you're like, all right, well, what's focused on math? Economics, finance, engineering. I actually started out as an engineering major, which is very
Wow.
math heavy. But
Oh
I think
yeah.
the last class before you actually would enter in the engineering school was advanced calculus 2, and
Uh-huh.
all the numbers disappeared. Right? It's just at that point, it's just symbols. I'm like, wait, I'm a math guy. All the numbers are gone. I'm just looking at symbols. Like maybe engineering isn't for me. And so I ended up switching over and then focusing on finance instead. That's a true story too. That was my decision making process of switching from engineering to finance.
Get us from college to work life.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I had a brief stint in the Canadian Football League with the
Yeah.
Saskatchewan Roughriders. Ended up getting released from the team. I came back to Austin, Texas, which is home for me. I actually ended up spending a few months with a ghostwriter. A publishing company had reached out to me, and so we ended up writing a book that I was a co-author. Basically, my story with the help of a professional about my time growing up in Austin and then going into Kansas and the success we found on the football field over those years. It was a really fun project to work on. Obviously, gave me a chance to really reflect on all that we had accomplished and the journey that I had to go through and all the support from my parents and friends and coaches that allowed me to have that level of success. So that was a really fun way to put kind of a bow on the football
Yeah.
phase of life
It's a
and
great
to go out
way.
there and tell that story and then be able to go back to Kansas and share that with a lot of the fans who had spent a lot of years, a lot of decades, watching Kansas football, not really have the level of success they would have liked as fans. So that was really fun. I was kind of tired of waiting around to see if I'd have another opportunity to play. And that's how I, first got connected to Dimensional Fund Advisors, was through David Booth, who is a Kansas alumni, a very well-known Kansas alumni, who's been very generous with his donations to the university. The football stadium is now named after David, after a very generous donation. So that was kind of my connection, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do because I hadn't really thought about it. Like, my 3-year plan was like, I'll play football for at least 3 years.
Right.
Like, I was up there in the league. I knew I was talented enough, but life had different plans. And funny enough, like 2 weeks before I was about to start my job at Dimensional, I got a call from the team in Montreal, like, hey, we want you to come to training camp next year. So I was at this crossroads. Like, do I try to continue to pursue this dream of mine to like play at a professional level? I know I have the skill and the talent to be able to do it, but also like there's an opportunity cost. Like, do I begin starting my career where I'm making the same amount of money? Because you're not getting paid a lot in the CFL.
Right.
If you're playing in the NFL and league minimums like $315,000, like you go the football route because like that's an opportunity to make a lot of money at that age in life that obviously can compound over time. Ultimately, I made the decision to go the professional route, and I was comfortable with that as much as I would have liked to have tried to test myself and see if I could, earn a position to be a starting quarterback in the Canadian League. I thought it would be more beneficial at that stage in life for me to pursue the start of a professional career and begin to build my track record on that side. I think the most challenging part of that decision was knowing that, or at least believing that I had the talent level to be a starting quarterback in that league. Because I had been up there, I had been on a team. And that's also just a challenge of professional sports too, is it certainly skill matters, but there is an element of luck, like being in the right team at the right time with an opportunity because they don't have a starting quarterback or they don't have an all-star player. In that league, there's only 8 teams, and 4 of them they've got the all-star quarterback. So like, there's only a couple of spots open at any point in time, and you have to be lucky enough to be on that team where you have an opportunity to even compete. So I think that was the hard part. Was knowing that I had some more in the tank, but at the same time I was comfortable enough thinking like, listen, I had a great collegiate career, like I had the opportunity to make it to the next level while I didn't play. Like at least I could say that I did it, I made it to that level, and I felt good about the legacy I left in terms of what I accomplished in sports and what I accomplished at Kansas. And so to flip that page and kind of turn to the next chapter, it felt like the right time for me.
You are a new member of The Post, a club dedicated to business people who are former athletes. Why? Why is it valuable to you? I mean, I get it. Like, okay, it's a private club for, folks coming out of like sports, right? And at a high level. It's not just like, oh yeah, we love sports, let's join this club. What resonated with you about that organization?
Yeah, it's something that I had kept an eye on over the last couple of years. It was started by a former quarterback as well, Christian Ponder, who also grew up in Texas, played at Florida State around the same time that I did. So I was certainly aware of Christian. And the more I kind of read about what he was building and really the ethos behind the Post, which is really, they're trying to build a community of former high-performing athletes, whether collegiate, professional. There's Olympians that have transitioned into the professional realm and continue to perform at a high level. So there is an application, a screening process, because they want people that have found success in both realms. So from my view, it's an opportunity to engage with like-minded people with similar backgrounds in a variety of different professional realms, and find opportunities for personal and professional growth, and to develop new relationships with really interesting and accomplished people. And so I think that was for me, switching over from a corporate structure similar to you, David, into much more of an entrepreneurial role. I'm working from home now. I'm not surrounded by a team every single day. I've got to find the motivation to sit down at the desk and wear multiple hats inside of our growing organization. I thought it'd be a great opportunity to potentially learn from other former athletes that are excelling, and not necessarily in financial services, but in other realms, in other industries, because there's transferable skills. As there's transferable skills from athletes to corporate employees, that the same thing holds true across industries. So I thought it was an opportunity for me in this new role, in this new era of my professional career, to potentially learn from others. And again, it goes back to that mindset we talked about of understanding that we don't know everything. I'm doing things in a professional sense that I haven't done before, right? I'm leading marketing efforts, which that wasn't necessarily my background. Well, great. I'm sure there's other people that can give me insights, that can share knowledge with me that'll help me elevate my game. And so I think the spirit of it was, you've always got to find a way to get better. And certainly there's a networking aspect of it as well that comes to that. And it's always great meeting interesting and successful people, right? Especially when they're former athletes. Like, it's easy. You're like, hey, what sport did you play? What college did you go to? Like, you've got an instant connection. And so I think that's that aspect from my, just a community point of view is why I think a lot of people are drawn to it as well.
Yeah, I ask that because, in our first season of Coded in Gold, we talked a lot about community, and it was kind of like not intentional. We just started having interviews and talking to people. And then when we looked back over the course of the first season, we were like, oh my gosh, like I'm talking about community a lot. And it's interesting. Some folks, tease me a little bit because I kind of am a collector of, certain types of private club memberships. And it's not because I like to collect them. It's like, it's a place where I'm able to interface with other high performing folks, but also develop some sense of community. So with one club in San Francisco, it was me and a friend of mine that co-founded like their LGBTQ group within the club. Right, it didn't exist, and we created it. And then we started having programming, and we started having events, and we started like really creating something around like-minded people. And so I ask that because I think it just feels like in 2025, in this era that we're living in, we have to be intentional creators of community. It just doesn't like fall in your lap. We have to be active participants in doing things like that. Okay, so you were at DFA, Dimensional Fund Advisors, for what, 14 years or something?
Yeah, about 13 years.
Okay, 13 years. Long. That's a long time, right?
Yeah, long stretch. Certainly in today's marketplace where people are hopping from job to job every couple of years.
You then take a sabbatical. And this is where you piqued my curiosity. You and I met recently again, caught up, actually just bumped into each other at a conference. And you were telling me about the sabbatical, and I was completely mesmerized. Because just like I mentioned before, it sounded to me like, eat, pray, love, boy style. And I was just like, okay, tell me more. Because you had told me what was it? 6 continents, 30 countries, over the course of what, was it a year, 9 months?
Yeah, 9 months of continuous travel, since I left.
Okay,
I left
9 months of continuous travel, 6 continents, 30 countries, and you did it with a friend.
Yeah, I had one friend for 6 of the 9 months, and then the other 3, I had some other friends that met up, and also did a little bit of time just solo travel as well. But I certainly would advocate, if you're going for an extended trip, having a good friend or a partner with you. It definitely makes it more enjoyable. In my view, experiences, memories like that that are one of a kind and ones you'll have your whole life are better to be shared with someone. Because now if I'm thinking back about, skydiving off Bluken's Bungee in South Africa or climbing to the top of Cotopaxi in Ecuador, I have someone else that knows what I'm talking about. They had that same experience. It's a shared memory. And I've always had the point of view that travel memories, relationships you build while traveling are always the strongest relationships and strongest memories that you have. There's something innate about that core memory of being somewhere new, being somewhere different, maybe the only time you'll ever be there, that it sticks and it ingrains in your memory, and I think it can be life changing, right? I think
Actually,
there's
I'm a firm believer. I am
yeah.
a
I know
absolutely
we've
firm
talked about that
believer.
before, Dave. I know you like you love to travel as well, and I think we share that same passion and belief that there is so much to be learned, so much perspective to be gained from traveling, and I think so many people don't take advantage, and they're missing out on what the world can teach you through travel.
Yeah, somebody told me once, they shall remain nameless, because I don't want them to feel bad. But someone close to me once upon a time said, there's so many beautiful places in America. Why would I ever need to go anywhere else? And I just remember, and it was said to me when I was fairly young, and I just remember thinking, even then, like, what are you talking about? That sounds crazy to me. That
Yeah.
sounds insane, in fact.
Well, and there are so many beautiful places in America that most people still haven't gone to that live in America.
No, all right.
Yeah, so it's like we're not even traveling enough within our own country, much less getting out to see the rest of the world.
Sure. And what I also think is interesting too is like when you leave a culture, like if when you leave America and you experience another culture, it can be life changing if you're open to it. And what I love about what you're saying on this on our show today is like you're weaving this thread of like being a student of life, a lifelong learner, of up leveling your game, up leveling your skill set, being able to gain, like, actually, number one, have the self-awareness that you don't know it all, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
where you have to begin. And then knowing and understanding that there's so much to be learned from other people out in the world. And what I love about it is like when I traveled for the very first time, it changed me. And now my husband and I very much view international, well, just travel period. Our son Xander actually loves Washington D.C. So like, he went to DC. He's like, when are we going back? I love it
Yeah.
here. And I was like, okay, that's very cool. Um, but when we travel internationally and there is something that just kind of cracks your mind and your heart open at the same time, where it's you have to struggle, right? Because there's language barriers for sure, right? In most places, you have to navigate a new there's cultural norms you should be following, right? If you wanted to be a respectful like consumer of their culture, right? And so that's something that my family really really values. Okay, how long did it take you to plan this thing?
So it came together pretty quickly, and to be honest, the only planning we did was we had a few events in different parts of the world that were a few months apart, and so those were
Okay.
our only barometers. Like we were like, let's follow the sunshine first off. So we
Okay.
left in November and we went south through Central and South America, went down
Okay.
from Mexico and Costa Rica, Nicaragua into South America, and basically did the entire western coast of South America down to Brazil. And then we were getting over to New Zealand because my friend I traveled is a former professional volleyball player, Ryan,
Okay.
and he wanted to play in a volleyball tournament in New Zealand. So we're like, all right,
Very
so we've
cool.
got 2 months in South America, and
Yep.
typically what we do, we'd go to a country, we'd buy a one-way flight into the country, we'd rent a car, and we'd get out and just start exploring. We probably went to 50 plus national parks around the world, which again I think is, I think back to not having gotten the opportunity to travel when I was younger. Right, I didn't get to do a study abroad because of sports. I jumped right into the professional realm versus taking maybe a gap year.
Yep.
But I made a promise to myself back then, 15, years ago, was this is important to me. Like at some point in my life, I've got to go see the world and not go see it for 2 week vacation. Like get out,
Yeah. Yeah.
unplug, and like actually go see the world and what it has to offer. And I was, as you start to get older, you realize like, well, like if I'm going to do this, like I need to take some action.
I mean, for the
Um,
record, you're not that old. So
no,
like as you
yeah,
get
exactly.
older,
I'm not
there
saying
you
exactly. But I know for a lot of people, like that I talk to, like, man, I wish I could have done that. And listen, if you have kids, if you've got a mortgage, and you've got work and responsibility, it gets more challenging to do as you
Yeah,
get older.
sure.
I was in a position where I had the ability to do that. I think the benefit of traveling when you're older is that your priorities have changed. Your appreciation for different cultures, for the natural beauty of the earth, for the food that you're eating is a little different than if you're 22, 23 years old and you're probably just
It's
partying
true.
at a hostel
This is true.
every
This is
night.
totally true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But even with that aside, I mean, if I could share, certainly things that I've learned or things that I would impress upon the next generation is like get out there and travel. Like I know some parents really make that important for their kids, like you do, David. But I think growing up with that perspective on how the rest of the world lives, on how good we have it in terms of the comforts of life in the U.S., how lucky we are to live in such an amazing country. I don't think there's any way you can really describe that to someone unless showing them how the other 80, 90% of the world lives, the types of conditions they deal with, the hardships they have on a daily basis. And I think when you see it with your own eyes, like, at least for me, that there's a profound like impact that happens, right?
Yeah.
You begin to appreciate all the things you have in your life and how lucky you are. And listen, everyone's going to have different takeaways from those types of experiences, but certainly for me, it's a very grounding and humbling experience to get out there and see some of the more really challenging environments that people live in.
Right. Skydiving. Where did you skydive?
I was in Interlaken, Switzerland, which is one of the most beautiful places I think I
Oh
went
my
to on the whole
gosh.
trip. You've got the two different lakes right there. One's blue, one's like turquoise color. So I actually went up on a helicopter like in between the two lakes, and this helicopter was like it seemed more fragile than like a Honda Civic. Like it was. I was like, I can't wait to get out of this helicopter because I do not feel safe in here.
Wow.
I felt more safe with the parachute on than I did flying around in that helicopter.
Did they take how high? Like how high did they take you up? 10,
I
13,000
think you
feet,
get up.
15?
Yeah, I think you get like 10 to 14,000 feet or
Oh, okay.
so.
Were you
Maybe
doing it tandem? Were you attached to somebody?
yeah, I
Okay.
unfortunately I haven't done it enough to where I can go solo, but I think at some point that'd be fun to be able to do a solo skydive.
Yeah, I was a licensed skydiver once upon a time.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
What's it like? 25 jumps you have to do before you can get
25
licensed?
jumps and you can
Yeah.
get your A license. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I got quite
But
a few more to go.
as you're doing the 25 jumps, you're doing them on your own. You're just jumping with an instructor.
Right.
Um and it's actually like I had the time of my life. I loved that,
So
but
how
I
many total jumps
also
have you done, David?
oh man, maybe a couple hundred.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right, I got a couple hundred to
There
go
was a
to catch
time
up.
period. There was a time period where I would go on the weekends and just jump, like
Yeah.
10 jumps on a Saturday, 10 jumps on a Sunday.
That's awesome.
That was a different era of my life.
Different area of life, yeah. I can imagine so.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do highlights, and then I'm gonna contrast that with like some deeper things.
Yeah.
Like, did you? Okay, so we covered like okay. Let's do the eat, pray, love part. Okay. Did
Yeah.
you find love on the trip?
I didn't find love on the trip.
Okay.
So that one was not a checkbox.
Okay, great.
I fell in love with a lot of places that I went to.
There
a lot
we
of
go. Okay.
experiences that I had.
Yep.
But not necessarily from a human connection point of view. Highlights, the most common question I've gotten the last year since I've been back is what was your favorite place? Now I think that is a loaded question.
It totally
So
is.
what?
My son actually
Yeah.
asks this question about everything these days. What was your
Yeah.
favorite this? What was your favorite that?
I
And I'm
think,
like, dude,
picking a favorite on any topic, it's like it changes through time. Like
Sure.
you ask me in a week, that might be different. So the way
That's
that I
right.
always have answered that is I break it down into like different categories. The place that I thought was the most beautiful, had the most breathtaking natural scenery was Patagonia. Right, you're at the edge of the world, the most southern point before you get to Antarctica. You have the Roaring Twenties, which is the wind that comes around the 20th parallel that creates these just breathtaking, mountains and views, and there's not a lot of people. So I thought that was like really the most unique experience in nature, like down in Glacier National Park and Torres del Paine, like unbelievable. Like, I can't wait to go back and spend more time down there. In terms of like quality of life, from like the culture that I love the most, which also was my favorite food, was Thailand. The whole country revolves around tourism. So it's
Okay.
so easy to get from place to place. There is endless beautiful beaches. It is extremely affordable. I mean, you get a beachfront bungalow and a little scooter and a massage every day, and like you're spending 60, $70 a day and like living very
Wow.
well. So you could, and that was the place I ended up spending the most time. I also think the Thai food is incredible. I liked Thai food before I went to Thailand. Like now I love Thai food. It's like just whether
Cool.
it's a cart on the side of the street or a restaurant, like it's all incredible. Like you get a fresh coconut every day. You know,
Wow.
you can watch every sunset, sunrise, and they're all beautiful. So I really love the Thai people, love the culture, love the food there. I also really liked South Africa, like from people and culture standpoint. It's got Cape Town, and there's a drive called um, the Garden Route, which basically drives northeast up the coast of South Africa, which is a gorgeous drive filled with national parks and like beautiful beaches. So that was a place that I really enjoyed as well. And then the most surprising country that I visited was Ecuador. So it wasn't even on
So funny.
my.
You're answering my questions. You're answering
Yeah.
my questions as you talk. So keep going. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you said highlights, so I was kind of
Yeah,
giving
yeah,
you the
yeah. No,
answers
this is
as they
great. This
come.
is
Yeah.
great. This is great.
So Ecuador wasn't even on our radar, but I had talked to two friends that had done similar extended trips, and they
Okay.
both recommended Ecuador. So we ended up spending a couple weeks in Ecuador. We went to the Galapagos, which was a really unique experience, knowing the history there with Darwin and theory of
Yep.
evolution, all of that. They got beautiful beaches on the west coast. Then Quito is a really cool capital city. I mean, it's at elevation like 10,000 feet at the city. North of it, a beautiful cloud rainforest, which are like one of the most unique forest settings. It's just the most dense green, like mountain jungles that you've ever seen. And then
Wow.
south of that, you have Cotopaxi, which is a 19,000-foot volcano. We actually, when we were there, we stayed later in the park than we were technically allowed to, and drove as high as we could up onto Cotopaxi, and we're the only ones up there, and we watched sunset at like 16,000 feet by ourselves on Cotopaxi, and then had
Wow.
this incredible drive the whole way down into this amazing sunset. So that was certainly like the surprise winner of the trip in terms of the countries we visited.
That's very cool. Were there any cultures that surprised you?
When I went to Cameroon, so one of my closest friends in the world, Lexi, he's from Cameroon. He got adopted when he was 14 years old by a family in San Antonio to come and play basketball in the U.S. He ended
Okay.
up playing at the University of Texas, and is still involved with the sports. Has given a lot back to his hometown, his home village in Cameroon. We had
Mm.
always talked about wanting to go back to his home country. Like I really wanted to see where he's from, go meet his family, because all of his family's still over there. And so we finally were able to line it up and make that happen. Now Cameroon has been um, you know, under Paul Biya's leadership, or dictatorship, depending upon how you want to think about it, for 43 years. He's the longest serving head of
Wow.
state in the history of the world, and you see the conditions of the people of Cameroon, which were just these amazing, loving, sweet people, hardworking, and yet they've had no one invests back in them to improve the conditions across the country. So to go and see the village, the tribe that he's from, he was supposed to be the chief of his tribe, the Tupuri tribe in Jiglao,
Wow.
Cameroon, in northern Cameroon. Um, so to go and have that type of an experience, which is something that I think very few people that come from the type of background or grow up in the U.S. like I did would ever get to experience. I mean, that was easily the most eye-opening, profound experience, was going with him to his village, right, where there's not running water and electricity or refrigerators or air conditioning. They've got one well on this land that his family owns that is meant to provide for four different smaller families and groups of villagers. So having that, and then thinking back, sometimes I'll be here and like you want to complain because your ice machine's not working, or like you're running low on your favorite berries or whatever it might be, or like you're stressed because like you got to send a few more emails out.
Yeah.
First world problems as I call them.
Sure.
I'll often think back to those times, and I'll think back to people that I met along my trip and try to reground myself and remind myself that, hey, whatever this challenge or obstacle that you're viewing is right now, like, you can handle it, you can overcome it. This is not a life or death situation. You're not struggling for fresh water or clean food or a place to sleep.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it doesn't. I'm not trying to say that our challenges or stresses aren't real, because they are. We feel them, we perceive
Sure.
them, they weigh on us. It's trying to reframe our mindset to realize that it's probably going to be okay, and you're going to be able to work through it if you just change your attitude and your perspective a little bit, and that can help you potentially work through that in a better state of mind, as opposed to being frantic and anxious and applying more pressure than is maybe necessary for that particular challenge.
Sure. Yeah, perspective. I mean, I have to say, like in my 20s, I had a real I struggled with perspective. I would just I my brain had a very hard time cracking open and seeing outside of what I thought was actually happening. Do you have any spiritual practices?
I yeah the we talked about this, I think, briefly, David. I had always wanted to spend more time, again, focused on areas of self improvement, and traveling gave me the opportunity to completely unplug. Obviously, I was on no one else's schedule but my
Sure.
own. I didn't have to answer emails or stay current on what's happening in the market. All I had to do was, what do I want to do today to enjoy this experience, and improve myself in ways that I want to focus on. And for me, that meant a daily practice of breath work and meditation, which I think is very beneficial. Like, I certainly saw the benefits of taking that time every morning to just focus on myself, try to clear my head, like be very clear and intentional on the things that I was trying to work on while I traveled, or that I wanted to accomplish in terms of longer term goals. And for myself, coming from a work environment, a social environment where you're just go 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 go, right? You're always going from one thing to the next. You're always distracted, that you barely have time to even take a breath and think, like, am I progressing in the direction I want to in life? Like, am I working towards the goals that are important to me, or am I just simply going through the motions week after week, month after month, year after year? Which I mean, in a lot of scenarios, that's exactly what's happening. And I certainly felt that was the way, like, where I was at in life. Like, I need to reset. I need to refocus and reground and figure out, like, what's really important to me. What's going to make me happy long term, not only personally but professionally and from life fulfillment standpoint. And so I think that daily practice of, like, really trying to focus on that and get clarity, it was something that really helped me. And the things that I kept coming back to were the three P's, as I called them, was, like, I want to be more patient, I want to be more present, and I want to be persistent. The patience was all about, like, slowing down in life, right? We're moving so fast that, like, it's okay if things aren't happening right this second, right now. Being comfortable being with yourself or your own thoughts, making time for others as well. Being present is, again, when you're engaging with people, like, giving them your undivided attention, like, really listening what they have to say, having empathy in that conversation. And I know I'd always be like, one conversation to the next, to the next, to the next. And you're like, did I really even take in or grasp what that person was telling me? Like, if it's one of your close friends, like, did you ask how they're doing? Like, maybe there's something going on where you could have been a better sounding board or a better friend. So I think that combination of patience and presence is important. Like, I think, in the professional realm, but even more so just in the personal realm, like being a good friend, being a good dad, being a good mom, being a good son. And then the persistence is, persistence in the pursuit of your goals, of what you want to accomplish, of things you want to change. And that can apply to anything. So those are kind of the three things. And that all came up through that daily meditation. And so I kind of repeated a mantra that I kind of worked around that. And it's something that I am still working towards today, right? There's always, new things, new goals you want to focus on. But I had, a lot of people in my life, close friends, that they noticed a difference when I got back home. Like, wow, like you seem more calm, you seem more grounded. I'm like, patience and presence. Yes, I worked on it.
It's interesting. When we had met originally, when you were still at DFA, I had a very distinct impression of who you were. Like, as I do with anyone when I meet
Yeah,
someone, I have a distinct impression, like, okay, this is who Todd is. And then when I saw you just a few months ago, you were different. You were very different. Like that, it literally felt like meeting a completely different
yeah.
person.
And there's a different energy, right? Just
Yes, yes,
the way that you carry
absolutely.
the way that you carry yourself, like
Yeah,
how you engage, like the way that you
sure.
speak, the tone of your voice, like all those things
That's
come
right.
through, right? And that's I think,
That's
and
right.
I appreciate you saying that actually, David, because I hope there was like
Yeah,
there
yeah.
was an intentional amount of time and effort that I was trying to put in to like make myself better, make myself a better version of who I wanted to be.
Well, what's
And
beautiful is like this whole conversation, like I'll go back to, these and yeah, back to the sports world, a very early, and even your family, um, to be disciplined, right? And then carrying out through school while you're being disciplined, not just in being the best that you can possibly be in the sports realm, but also making sure that you had academic performance there and like the influence that your mother had on you. So there was like all of these ingredients in your life that were setting you up for not only success in for as far as you can possibly take your sports career, both in school and outside of school, but then also setting you up really, really well for all of those transferable skills in the workplace. And then what I find, personally, what's most beautiful for me is you hit a point in your life where you were able to recognize that it was time to take a break and do something different, right? Like that gap year that you were never able to take,
mhm,
and then be able to actually do it in a way that could change the future trajectory of your life.
yeah,
And I feel like the person I met a couple of months ago was the person that's on a new trajectory.
yeah,
I'm super sensitive to that. It's just been super, super beautiful. And for me, really beautiful at understanding folks. I don't like in my circle, like I'm not talking to folks that we're so deep into the sports world. And
yeah,
this has just been, honestly, it feels really good for me because I had a certain view. We'll call it a stereotype, but a certain stereotype of folks coming out of, the world of sports.
yeah.
Um, and, and this has been very, very different. And I knew it was going to be different a month ago when I met you. I was
Yeah.
just like, wow, oh my goodness.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, David. And again, it was great to reconnect. I'm glad we ran in, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. As I was, preparing for our conversation, like it gave me opportunity just to reflect, like knowing that we would
Mm,
talk about some of these things, like and just kind of reconfirm, like the things that I was focused on when I traveled, the lessons that I learned, what sports has taught me, and it's something I've been thinking a lot about as well. Part of it's being re-engaged in this athlete network as well, and so I think there's a lot of valuable valuable takeaways that sports can teach us, that we can
oh
take
yeah.
throughout our life, that travel can teach
Hmm.
us throughout our life, and
That's
again,
right.
all these things are transferable. And at the end of the day, though, I think it ultimately comes down to are you willing to put in the time? Are you willing to be focused? Are you willing to be disciplined to learn something new, to take a risk, to take on a new challenge? Because I've certainly found that when you go through something hard and you accomplish it, or you learn a new skill, or you take a risk that pays off, there is no better feeling. It's
That's
why
right.
athletes continue to chase that adrenaline high, because there is
Yeah.
nothing that can replace it. There's no amount of cocktails at the bar or things you can do
That's
that
right.
will give
That's right.
you that adrenaline high. And I think that same type of reward is possible for overcoming challenges, for accomplishing something that's difficult, for trying new experiences. And that's certainly, I think, probably why I've gravitated toward wanting to travel, wanting to do new things, like engage
Yeah.
in, because that for me is like I get that same type of feeling that you can't really recreate unless you're continuing to play sports at a high level. And my rotator cuffs wouldn't let me do that anymore at this point, I don't think.
For sure. This has been awesome. Todd, thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you for showing up and being present. And like, I love this, like patience, presence, and persistence. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, David. Really enjoyed talking with you today. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for listening to Coded in Gold. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us grow this community and keep these conversations going. You can find all links to follow the podcast and connect with our guests in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in, and take good care.